Now we're going to talk about affordances and signifiers. An affordance is a property of an object that allows an individual to perform an action. For example, the shape of the blue chair in this slide allows the woman to sit on it. So the shape of the chair is an affordance for the woman. However, the existence of an affordance depends not only on the object being used, but by the person using it. Therefore, the shape of the chair is not an affordance for the elephant. At least, it's not an affordance that allows sitting. Some things can be anti-affordances. Norman ran into these posts in Japan that were located at the entrance to a park. These are anti-affordances because they prevent cars from driving into the park. Norman thought these would be fine examples of anti-affordances, so he took a picture of them to take back to the States and show his students. However, that wasn't the end of the story. He came back to the park the next day, and he saw a maintenance vehicle on the path in the park. And he thought to himself, wait a second, how did that maintenance vehicle get into the park with those posts, those anti-affordances being there? So he took the opportunity to examine them closer, and what he found was these posts, while appearing to be anti-affordances, were simply made of rubber and could easily be run over with a car or truck if one decided to do so. That's when he realized that these posts were actually false anti-affordances. So we can have affordances and we can have false affordances. We can also have anti-affordances and false anti-affordances. Is that all? No, not quite. In addition to having an affordance or an anti-affordance, and in addition to having a true affordance or a false affordance, an object may also have a hidden affordance or a perceptible affordance. Let's look at the definitions in this slide. A false affordance, which we've already talked about, is an apparent affordance that doesn't have any real function. The user thinks that they can or cannot do something due to some property, but the user's assumption is wrong. A hidden affordance indicates that something is possible, but the user doesn't see it. If an object has a perceptible affordance, the user thinks something is possible and the user is correct. The upshot is that the most useful affordances are neither hidden nor false. Placebo buttons are a great example of false affordances. A placebo button does nothing when you press it, but the very fact that the button is there makes you think it is doing something. Here are two good examples. In the 1980s, most of the walk buttons in New York City were disabled. Nearly all of the signals are controlled by computers, but the buttons are still there, and people still press them. Another example, the close door button on most elevators does not close the door. Why do people think it works? Because the doors usually take a few seconds to close, and after 2 seconds, people get frustrated and press it, and then the doors close, just like they would have anyway. Actually, those buttons usually do work for emergency personnel. They prevent the elevator doors from opening even if someone outside the elevator has pressed a button.